Hi there, I'm Kaylee. On my birthday, my sister hit me in front of everyone with a cake stand. Why? Because I said no to signing over my $850,000 stock. But that wasn't the start. It began way before, with quiet manipulation, fake brunches, family pressure dressed up as love. They planned it like a business deal. They smiled while scheming. And when I didn't play along, they tried to break me. Ever been betrayed by the people who once called you family? They never said it, but I wasn't the daughter they wanted. I figured that out before I learned long division, somewhere between my 9th birthday and my sister's 15th dance recital. That year, I asked for a telescope. I got a plastic tiara instead. My mother clapped as Shayna placed it on my head, her face glowing like she'd just crowned royalty. I smiled for the photos, but inside, something small and solid curled in my chest. I learned early, if you didn't sparkle the way they wanted, you'd better disappear quietly. Now, at 33, I was still expected to play along, still supposed to pretend the family frame wasn't cracked straight through. They called me independent, like it was a flaw. Shayna was the one they showed off. Pretty, bubbly, Instagram perfect. Me? I was a name in their group texts when they needed tax advice or a second driver for Thanksgiving. A week before my birthday, we had dinner at my mother's house. I should have known it wasn't just a catch-up night when she set the table with real napkins. Darlene poured Chardonnay for everyone, except me. I had water, apparently because I was always so uptight. "So," she started, swirling her glass, "you still doing well with those stocks of yours?" Her voice was syrupy, but there was glass under it. Before I could answer, Shayna jumped in. "Tech or energy? Just curious. You know, since we're family." I looked at her over the rim of my glass. "Diverse portfolio," I said simply. She grinned like I'd handed her a puzzle she couldn't solve. My mother added, "It's just, you know how the market is. Seems silly for one person to hold too much when others could benefit too." Then she buttered her roll like she hadn't just suggested I start redistributing my investments to my freeloading sibling. I didn't respond. I let silence say what needed to be said. But inside, I took note, not just of the words, of the way they looked at each other before speaking, like they'd rehearsed this, like this dinner was a soft opening to something worse. When the night ended, Shayna hugged me goodbye with the tightness of a person trying to remind you she's still your sister. Her perfume clung to my jacket the whole drive home. I rolled the windows down. Back in my apartment, I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat in the dark, phone in hand, scrolling through her feed. Photos of spa days, new sponsorships, perfect smiles. The caption on her latest, "Family is everything." Meanwhile, Mom hadn't even asked how my quarter ended at work. No one knew I'd pulled a record bonus. Or maybe they did. Maybe that was the whole point of dinner. I stood in my kitchen looking around at everything I'd built. No one handed me this life. I worked through nights, saved every raise, paid for my own education, and still sent birthday checks to the same mother who once told me I should smile more like Shayna. I poured myself tea. No wine. I needed a clear head now. Something told me they weren't done. The water in my mug had gone cold. I was still standing in the kitchen, staring at nothing in particular, when I decided to check my portfolio. Something I did every Sunday night, part of my routine. My brokerage dashboard loaded like it always did, familiar and clean. Then came a pop-up that stopped me cold. Unrecognized login attempt. Location? Unknown device. Time? 10:13 p.m. I stared at it. The timestamp was just 3 hours after dinner with my mother and Shayna. My fingers moved slowly, refreshing the page, checking device logs. There it was again. Same time, same failed attempt, same eerie message. Attempted access denied. I hadn't logged in from any new device. No one else had access. Not legally. I shut the laptop lid and leaned back, pulse steady but sharp. I'd known they were circling. I just didn't think they'd be this sloppy. Or maybe they assumed I wouldn't notice, or worse, wouldn't care. I didn't sleep much that night. I reset passwords, enabled two-factor authentication on every platform I owned. I even locked down old email addresses, the ones I barely used anymore. Then I encrypted all my work files, just in case. By the time the sun rose, I'd secured everything but my peace of mind. That morning, I was sipping reheated coffee and scrolling through emails when one stood out. No subject line, no name, just a Gmail address I didn't recognize. I almost deleted it until I read the first line. "You should know what your mom and sister are planning." There was an audio file attached. I clicked play. The static lasted 2 seconds before Darlene's voice broke through, low and conspiratorial. "If she signs after the second glass of wine, it'll be hers in minutes. She won't even think to question it." Shayna's voice followed, casual, amused. "And if she asks, we just tell her she was being generous. You know how she gets when she's grateful." I didn't drop the phone. I placed it down carefully like it might explode. They weren't guessing. They weren't hoping. They were planning, scheming, like I was an account, not a person, a walking, breathing jackpot. I stood still for what felt like an hour. The betrayal didn't come as a punch. It came as a cut, slow, surgical, deliberate. By noon, I had every device recording. I installed keyloggers, synced my cameras to private cloud backups, even upgraded the locks on my condo. I took screenshots, transcribed the audio, backed up everything twice. They wanted to play silent war? I'd fight in silence too, but on my terms. I told no one, not even my best friend, not yet, because this wasn't paranoia anymore. It was confirmation. 4 days passed. I didn't say a word to them, not a warning, not a threat. I waited. On the night of my birthday, the restaurant buzzed with polite laughter and polished silverware. I had chosen the place, a private room at La Sorella, not because it was my favorite, but because it had doors I could close if I needed to, and I had a feeling I would. Just before the toast, Calvin found me by the hallway leading to the kitchen. His eyes darted nervously between me and the door. "I heard them," he whispered. "In the car, last week. Your mom said something about getting you to sign after the second glass. Said it'd all be over in minutes." I stared at him. No shock, just silence. He flinched under it. "You believe me?" he asked. "I already knew," I replied, then walked back to my seat. Dinner moved forward like a play everyone had rehearsed. Darlene laughed too loudly. Shayna complimented the wine she didn't pay for. I let them act, let them believe they still held the script, and then came the moment. Darlene clinked her glass. The room grew quiet, save for the soft hum of ambient jazz. She rose with her usual stage smile. What greater gift is there than family, especially when one of us has been abundantly blessed? Murmurs, soft nods. I didn't move. Shayna leaned across the table, envelope in hand. "Just something symbolic," she said, placing it in front of me. "It's nothing binding, just an affirmation of trust." I didn't touch it. I looked at her, then at our mother. Then I slid the envelope across the table, face down. I came for dinner, not a transaction. The silence was thick. Someone shifted in their chair. A fork clinked to the floor. Darlene's smile didn't disappear. It froze. Cracked. But she recovered fast, as she always did. "Of course, honey, no pressure, we just thought—" "No," I said, calm but final. "You didn't think. You planned." They didn't argue. They didn't apologize. They just moved on, smiling, toasting, laughing again like nothing happened. But I saw Calvin's face. He didn't raise his glass. I sat through dessert like a stranger at my own table, watching, recording every word, every twitch, every sidelong glance. If they were bold enough to try this in public, I had no doubt they'd go even further behind closed doors. And this time, I wouldn't just be ready. I'd be 3 steps ahead. That night, I barely slept, but when I did, it wasn't rest. It was calculation. By sunrise, I was at my kitchen table with a notepad, listing every moment from the dinner. Who spoke, who didn't, what time that envelope hit the table. This wasn't paranoia anymore. It was pattern recognition. My phone buzzed. Calvin. "I don't know what to say. That wasn't okay." Me. "Thanks. I warned them. This is on them now." I meant every word. By mid-morning, I called Darlene. She picked up after 2 rings, her tone sweet, like she didn't spend the past week treating me like a target. "Morning, sweetheart." "I'll keep this short," I said. "If you bring this up again, stocks, signatures, anything, I'll consider it harassment, public or private." There was a pause. "You're being dramatic," she replied, that condescending tone curling under her breath. We're family, Kaylee. Then act like it. I ended the call and saved the timestamp. Later that afternoon, I met up with Quinn, an old college friend who worked in a paralegal office. We sat in a coffee shop, quiet and off-grid. I showed her the messages, the login logs, even the transcribed voice memo. She didn't blink. You need documentation. Keep backing up everything. If they try again, you'll be covered, legally and morally. I'm not planning revenge, I said. I know, she nodded, but they don't. That night, I made a folder on my cloud drive. Case_backup_1. I added subfolders. I built a timeline. And then I wrote a short summary at the top of a document. What they tried to take from me wasn't just money. It was control. I leaned back in my chair. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Let them keep pretending. Let them think I was still the quiet one. They had no idea what quiet could really do. 2 days after the dinner debacle, I walked into Shayna's condo already knowing it was a trap. Everything was staged. Croissants in woven baskets, overpriced juice in glass carafes, candles flickering like we were at a spa, not a battlefield. Shayna greeted me with an over-practiced hug. Glad you came, she said, like I had a choice. Darlene was already seated, her posture stiff, hands folded neatly on her lap like she was preparing to give a sermon. Calvin lingered in the background, quieter than usual. 15 minutes into brunch, the mask slipped. You embarrassed your sister in front of people who matter, Darlene began, calmly like she was reading from a parenting manual. You owe it to her, to this family, to make it right. Shayna slid the envelope across the table again like it was nothing. It's just legal housekeeping. Sign it, and we can all move forward. I didn't touch it. Any further pressure, I said, and I'll treat this as an attempt to defraud. Try me. They blinked. Darlene's lips parted, but I didn't give her time. You act like my success is an accident, like I'm a glitch in your perfect picture. I worked for everything I have. I earned it. Darlene's voice turned sharp. You think that stock makes you better than us? No, I replied. But what I sacrificed for it, that's what makes me different. The room fell silent. Then Calvin stood up. This isn't brunch. It's bait, he said flatly. You didn't invite her to reconcile. You wanted her signature. Darlene's head snapped toward him. Shayna's jaw dropped. I reached for my coat. You can keep the food, I said. I'm done feeding this cycle. I left without looking back. Back at my place, I didn't unpack. I documented everything. What was said, who was there, what time it happened. Then I emailed Jerome, the attorney Quinn recommended. Subject line, requesting consultation. I added every file I'd collected, screenshots, recordings, login reports. I included a transcript of brunch. They turned this into a campaign. Fine. I'd turn it into a case. 2 days later, I stood at the edge of a banquet hall I never agreed to fund. My name was printed on the program. Platinum sponsor, right beneath the charity's title. I hadn't donated a dime. The walls were wrapped in white fabric, the kind meant to hide flaws, and each table was topped with centerpieces more expensive than honest conversation in my family. Darlene stood near the podium. Shayna was already mingling, beaming in red silk, her voice sharp with charm. I kept to the corner until Shayna's voice floated over the speakers. We're so grateful to my sister Kaylee, whose generosity helped bring this night to life. People clapped. Darlene turned and pointed me out like a prize pig. My hands curled into fists. When the applause died down, I stepped forward. I need to clarify something, I said, my voice even but loud enough. I wasn't informed, and I didn't approve the use of my name or likeness for this event. I won't be associated with this presentation. There was silence. Then, murmurs. Shayna came down from the stage, fake smile frozen in place. Kaylee, don't be dramatic, you're overreacting. No, I replied, you're exploiting. She hissed through her teeth. Can't you just pretend for once? I stopped pretending the second you turned my life into leverage. I turned to leave. She followed. You really want to ruin this? And before I could respond, she snapped. She reached toward the dessert table, grabbed a metal cake stand, and hurled it like it had weight to prove. It struck my temple. I crumpled to my knees. Gasps filled the air. Someone screamed. Blood hit the marble floor before I could even process the pain. A videographer dropped his camera bag, phone already out filming. Tobias, a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years, pushed through and knelt beside me. "Call 911, he barked. Calvin's voice rose. "You assaulted her in front of everyone!" Darlene shouted at me from across the room. "Look what you did! You pushed her too far!" My dress stuck to my skin. Warm, wet. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I reached for my phone, opened the camera, and hit record. Hours later, under hospital lights, a doctor told me I had a minor skull fracture. A police officer stood by my bed. "I want to press full charges," I said. "No settlement, no contact." He nodded. I asked for a pen. Then I called Jerome. "Prepare everything," I told him. "I'm done letting them write the rules." Tobias came by the next morning. He didn't text first. He just knocked, 3 times, slow and solid. I opened the door with a bandage still taped to my temple. He didn't flinch when he saw it. "I've got the video," he said. "Everything." He handed me a flash drive. I didn't plug it in right away, just held it in my palm like it weighed 100 pounds. But when I did, when I finally watched Shayna raise that cake stand and swing, it all looked worse than it felt. Even the blood on the floor, even my mother yelling that I'd caused it. Jerome watched the footage next. No emotion, just silence. When it ended, he leaned back in his chair and said, "We're not asking for justice anymore. We're invoking it." Calvin reached out later that day, said he had old recordings on his phone, conversations with Shayna. One of them had her laughing about gaslighting Kaylee into gratitude. He forwarded the audio. It clicked like puzzle pieces falling into place. Shayna wasn't impulsive. She was deliberate, practiced, cold. By the following morning, Jerome had filed charges: felony assault plus attempted financial coercion. A restraining order was processed, and subpoenas prepped for the guests who saw it all. The press caught wind within 24 hours. Tech analyst assaulted by sister over inheritance dispute. They used a flattering headshot from LinkedIn, one I'd nearly deleted. Darlene and Shayna tried to get ahead of it. They claimed I faked the injuries, that I had a breakdown, and they were just trying to protect me from myself. But video doesn't lie. Tobias agreed to testify. So did a woman from the catering staff who'd witnessed the hit and never forgot the sound. Calvin sent more screenshots. Shayna had been spiraling. Texts about finally getting what she deserved, about teaching Kaylee a lesson. Jerome's team expanded. Even a media advisor offered to volunteer. "Your case is strong," she told me, "and your voice is finally being heard." That night, I stood in front of the mirror, tracing the bruise that spread like ink down my cheekbone. They'd tried to turn my life into a weapon. I'd make sure the truth struck harder. The courtroom was colder than I expected, not in temperature, just in silence. The kind of hush that made even shoe scuffs sound disrespectful. I sat beside Jerome at the plaintiff's table. Shayna sat across the aisle, arms crossed, her lawyer whispering urgently in her ear. Darlene had her sunglasses on indoors, like hiding behind them might soften the truth. The judge entered. We rose. Jerome started with the video. No monologue, no drama, just played it, raw. Shayna swinging the cake stand. Me collapsing. Darlene yelling. The gasps in the gallery weren't mine this time. They were real. Tobias took the stand first, then the caterer, then Calvin. "She was baited, humiliated, and then struck," Calvin said, and I stood there watching it unfold. Shayna's attorney called it a misunderstanding triggered by emotional stress. Darlene doubled down. "My daughter exaggerates everything. She's always been sensitive." When it was my turn, I stood. I didn't look at them. I spoke to the jury. This wasn't about emotion, it was entitlement. I wasn't attacked because I said something cruel. I was attacked because I said no. Shayna refused to testify. She whispered to her lawyer with a fury that made her hands tremble. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Verdict: guilty. Felony assault for Shayna. Civil liability for Darlene. Shayna would face probation, court-ordered therapy, and restitution. Darlene was fined and named in the civil judgment. Calvin didn't wait for them. After the sentence was read, he stood, looked once at Shayna, and walked out alone. Outside, reporters circled. I didn't stop. I didn't speak. I let the silence trail me like armor. Later that evening, back at my apartment, I opened my voicemail. Darlene's last message. "You destroyed this family. I hit delete. Then I framed the verdict summary, not out of pride, but out of proof. A reminder that standing up doesn't always look like screaming. Jerome called. "It's over," he said. "Legally?" I asked. "Yes, personally?" He paused. "That's yours to decide." I nodded, even though he couldn't see it. Then I opened my laptop and started researching flights. Somewhere warm, quiet, solo. I didn't pack much. A carry-on, a sweater that still smelled like cedar, and the same flats I wore to court. I wasn't running away. I just needed distance, physical proof that I could leave everything behind, even for a few days. The morning before my flight, I sat in my kitchen. The silence was different now. It wasn't heavy with dread, just still. No new texts, no missed calls, not from Darlene, not from Shayna, not even out of spite. I walked to the Denver Botanic Gardens. The trees were bare, but I liked them better that way, honest. You could see their skeletons, no leaves to hide behind. A couple passed me pushing a stroller. I wondered if their family was gentle, or if they just looked that way from a distance. Later that day, I heard Shayna had lost her last sponsor. Darlene's name was quietly scrubbed from 2 local board listings. Neither was surprising. I told Jerome I wouldn't pursue more lawsuits. "It's not about grace," I said. "I just want my life back." He nodded. "Sometimes peace costs more than revenge, but it lasts longer." I left for the airport before dawn the next day. TSA was quiet. No one recognized me, thank God. On the plane, I pulled out my laptop. I opened a blank document. At the top, I typed, "Notes to my future self." Then I wrote the first line. "You chose yourself, even when no one clapped. That's worth everything." We took off over the Rockies. I looked out at the mountains, and for the first time in months, I didn't brace for a drop. Some scars don't heal, but they stop bleeding, and sometimes that's enough. You know, if I could go back and whisper something to the version of me from a year ago, before the birthday, before the betrayal, I wouldn't say, "Watch out." I'd say, "You're stronger than you think, and the people who count on your silence, they fear your voice more than they fear being wrong." Family isn't just about blood. It's about respect, safety, and truth. I learned, painfully, that setting boundaries might not protect your relationships, but it will protect your peace, and peace is priceless. To anyone watching this who's been gaslit, minimized, or made to feel like their success is something they owe, you don't owe anyone access to what you've earned, not even your family, especially not your family if they weaponize love to control you. And now I want to ask you something real. Have you ever had to choose between loyalty and your sanity? Between being the nice one and finally being honest? Let me know in the comments. If you related to this story, drop a 1 or tell me what city or state you're watching from. If it didn't hit home, tell me why. I'm here to listen. We all grow from different truths. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more true stories that matter. Let's keep these conversations alive, because healing doesn't happen in silence, and neither does justice. Thanks for watching.